Hello Internet, Taliesin here. Today we are talking the War Within Alpha. We are talking much loved two-time expansion hub and basically everyone's favourite city in the game, Dalaran, and we are talking the fact that Dalaran is destroyed at the beginning of the War Within. And I mean, yeah, red bot spoiler bot warning, right? But come on, realistically, no spoiler warning is going to be effective when it comes to this. Look away now if you don't want to learn a massive spoiler about Dalaran at the beginning of War Within, everyone. Okay, I will look away because I don't want to know, and now I will remain blissfully spoiler-free until the game launches. Phew. No, just like Varian and Vol'jin dying at the start of Legion, this is news that not only is going to be impossible for anyone who even casually follows WoW discourse to avoid, but importantly, Blizzard clearly don't want you to avoid it. There are hints of it in the just released WoWcast talking about Alpha, and the second you start playing Alpha, the quests set in the immediate aftermath of the event are literally the first thing players will be thrown into. Blizzard want you to know about Dalaran's grisly fate. They want you to talk about it. It's an important part of their War Within marketing, and I know we all have a lot of questions right now. How does this happen? Why does it happen? And have you forgotten about the absolute shit show that was the burning of Teldrassil, Blizz? Do you want to create another least popular event in the history of WoW, Blizz? Blizz, what were you thinking, Blizz? Now, the good news is, I have the answers to all of those questions for you, because Evie and I were invited to London with a bunch of other EU press and creators to play the Alpha, see all of this for ourselves, and most importantly for this video, we were able to talk to producer Holly Longdale, game director Ian Hazakostas, and lead game designer Maria Hamilton. Three of the biggest WoW guns Blizz has to offer. We asked each of them to explain why the decision to destroy WoW's most iconic and popular city was taken, and what it means for the World Soul Saga. I highly recommend you listen to what they have to say. Join us as we look at the huge event that kicks off next expansion, including, oh, and I didn't mention this bit yet, what looks to be a very important character death, and wave goodbye to Dalaran. Okay, go, 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 go. So when the Alpha goes live, players will be thrust into the very first quests on the War Within's new continent, the Isle of Dawn. But it's not the very start of the expansion. As is the way with all modern X-Packs, players will first be put into an introductory scenario to get the story rolling. That is something that Blizz are not testing before launch because they apparently want to keep the narrative twists and turns a secret. A wise and noble move, which is frankly completely useless because with the best will in the world, it doesn't take Columbo to piece together what went down to lead to bits of Dalaran being strewn about everywhere and a bunch of Nerubians trying to kill the survivors, and the survivors all shouting stuff like, "Oh no, I can't believe Dalaran's destroyed and it's all the Nerubians' fault." This questing, by the way, really good, and a very exciting introduction to the new continent, dropping players right into a huge battle which sees you rescuing our cast of characters from the debris of the fallen city. We pull Moira and her son with the best new model in WoW, second best new model in WoW, Dagran from the wreckage. Alleria is here with her hot new look. Jaina is about pulling everyone together. Thrall is fighting back the wave of insectoid attackers. Anduin is here too, looking very grizzled and beardy, but also like he might cry at any moment, and that's why we love him. I wouldn't have it any other way. And I mean, that's it, right? That's all the major characters we would expect to be in Dalaran, right? There's no one else we would expect to see here who isn't here for whatever reason, is there? No one I can think of right now for sure, no. But from what all of these characters are saying, we can deduce that the Nerubians actually launched an attack on Dalaran in those introductory quests. And this is what led to the floating city falling out of the sky and shattering on the Khadgar shores below. And of course, there are some interesting questions we can ask here. Was Dalaran already on its way to the Isle of Dawn when this attack happened, and why? Or did the Nerubians attack the city while it was in the Broken Isles or other location, and in the panic, perhaps the mages tried to teleport the city away and it ended up here randomly? We don't know yet, but I do think the former option is probably the most likely. It seems from the War Within features trailer that Alleria has some kind of link with the expansion big bad Xal'atath, and I'm betting that in the story leading up to this, she identifies the Isle of Dawn, or way below the Isle of Dawn, as being where she thinks Naifu's whispers are coming from. The Kirin Tor and Planeteers decide to investigate, magical floating city in tow, and float straight into a Nerubian ambush. Bye-bye Kirin Tor, 1-0 Void Mummy. Eventually, the climax of these opening quests sees the native Khadgar Earthen Storm Riders swooping to save the day and whisk us away to their capital, Dawn Egal, our new hub city for the expansion, and all is well. True, we may have lost Dalaran, but all of the main players seem to have survived, which is very lucky when you think about it. And as soon as this text crawl describing a future cinematic is done, we can get on with playing the War Within. They take a moment for Khadgar. Hang on, what? They take a moment for Khadgar? So yeah, this is currently all we've got to go on. Just the one sentence in an alpha filler scene that will not make it to the live game. But Khadgar is nowhere to be seen on the beach in the opening quests, and this certainly seems like Blizz are opening the War Within with not only the destruction of everyone's favourite city, but the death of everyone's favourite wizard dad. And like, what? What are you doing? What are you doing that for? Now, to be fair, unlike Dalaran ending up in pieces on the beach, we can't actually say for certain at this stage that Khadgar is a goner. Like, maybe we just take a moment for him while he stops to tie his shoelace, and we're all like, oh, Khadgar, you're so slow and old. We always have to take a moment to wait for you to do anything. It seems unlikely. Slightly more realistically, though, maybe he gets captured by the Nerubians in the attack, and at this very moment is tied up in a dungeon being tortured and degraded by Xal'atath herself, just desperately holding out, hoping that we never come and rescue him and he gets to stay there with her forever, the lucky bastard. We just don't know. But with the statement that it seems WoW is making at the beginning of this expansion, a much loved and massively lore-important character death certainly shouldn't be ruled out, which leads us to the next part of this video, the most important part of this video. Why are Blizzard doing this? Why make the decision to destroy a location that means so much to the player base? And why risk repeating the huge backlash that followed the last time they did that, with the burning of Teldrassil, an event that it can be argued still haunts and damages the game to this day? It's impossible not to talk about all of this without thinking of the burning of Teldrassil, an event that was put front and centre of the marketing for the Battle for Azeroth expansion, which stoked discussion and intrigue and anticipation in the community for months in the lead up to launch, but ultimately left huge swathes of the player base unhappy, whether because they were Night Elf players who had just lost their home city, Horde players who resented being forced to take part in that war crime, or general WoW enjoyers who thought the big reveal that it happened just because Sylvanas had a major petty spiteful FU moment while arguing with a main Night Elf on the beach was about as morally grey as, well, everything else that happened in BFA, to be honest. Whatever. It cast a huge shadow over that expansion and the game that for many players still persists today, to the extent that destroying another beloved city can't help but feel like a big risk. Maybe an even bigger risk, since Dalaran is a city that means a lot to every WoW player, being the main player hub for Horde and Alliance in two of the most treasured and popular WoW expansions ever, Wrath of the Lich King and Legion. Dalaran has been destroyed before, of course, but that was in Warcraft 3. Its story in WoW has always been one of renewal, of rebuilding, of cross-faction cooperation, and of hope. Except when Jaina killed all the Blood Elf mages, but shh. I have opinions on the blowing up of Dalaran, but I think it's time we heard from some of the devs themselves on why this happens and why they think it is different from Teldrassil. And like I say, in the last couple of days, we have been lucky enough to talk to Holly, Ian, and Maria on this topic, and plenty else besides. We did a fantastic full interview with lead game designer Maria Hamilton, which I'm incredibly happy with and which will be published in full on this channel soon. But here's what she had to say specifically about how the destruction of Dalaran fits into the narrative.
We want to make sure that players understand the risk. They want to understand who the enemies are and why we are pursuing them. The introduction, which you won't be able to play until we launch, is going to provide a lot more detail around what has happened there. But because of where we start and because we wanted to get feedback, it was going to be very obvious that something has gone horribly awry. So we were really looking forward to seeing people's comments and what people speculate has occurred. Yes, we wanted to come out of the gate swinging. So we did. I mean, we had lengthy conversations about how this wasn't the same, how this was not sort of one race taking the hit here, how players would likely react to having this wonderful sort of neutral place that we have where we can go and meet each other and hang out. We talked a lot about it and what the risks were there, and we think that it ultimately is worth it. It's a place that everyone can feel lost for simultaneously, because we all lose when Dalaran goes down. I mean, it was intentional, it was calculated, and we do not want to repeat the feelings that happened with Teldrassil. So yeah, we talked about it a lot. I think you should feel anything can happen, because anything can happen.
We also did a roundtable with Ian via video call, which we weren't allowed to record live footage of, but you better believe we asked him about this. Ian had many of the same sentiments, saying how they wanted to make the stakes feel incredibly high from the very beginning of the expansion. A particular phrase that he used that I really liked was when he said, "If nothing ever changes, then nothing ever changes." And even though we didn't have an interview with Holly Longdale officially scheduled, she's basically the nicest person ever born and insisted on coming to chat with us off camera as we set up for our interview with Maria. And so obviously we took the opportunity to ask her take on all of this, and it probably won't surprise you to learn that it was very similar to the previous two. That there had been a lot of internal discussion about the decision to crash Dalaran, but it was ultimately decided that there's basically no point to this game if there are no consequences or no stakes, and that what differentiates all of this from Teldrassil is that there are not some players that are victims and some that are perpetrators. Instead, everyone suffers in this loss equally. And in terms of leading into the World Soul Saga, it shows, in her words, what's at stake and that nothing is safe. An impressively consistent message from 3 devs in 3 different interviews, and I have to say, I agree. Destroying Dalaran feels less like Teldrassil and much more like the beginning of Legion, when Varian, Vol'jin, and Tyrion were killed. I remember that Varian death cinematic knocking me for 6 when I watched it, and it helped Legion feel truly dangerous in its opening weeks. Like the world really was on the brink and we were fighting for its survival, exemplified by this fact that no character was guaranteed to come out of it the other side alive, no matter how important. And I think after Dragonflight, which is an absolute banger of an expansion gameplay-wise, but does definitely, by design, lack a feeling of urgency or any real danger, it was very important that War Within, by extension the World Soul Saga, set out its stall early in this regard, make its intentions clear, and basically do a Legion in terms of upping the stakes and showing the consequences of those stakes, underlying what the forces we are fighting against are capable of and what we stand to lose if we fail. As Ian says in the Wowcast, if we don't win this one, nothing else matters. I think destroying the most loved city in the game and seemingly killing off one of the franchise's oldest and most iconic characters definitely achieves that to some degree. You'd imagine it's going to be an absolute monster of a cinematic that shows it all going down when the expansion launches, and it kicks off the whole trilogy with the threat level turned all the way up. And much as I love Dragonflight, yeah, I think we really need that. Consider me very excited for what I've seen of the War Within and its narrative so far. But what do you think? Get in the comments. Let us know how you feel about this surprise opening to the War Within and some of your fondest Dalaran memories from your time playing WoW too, because I think we deserve a bit of nostalgia after all of this. We've got loads more to talk about from the War Within alpha, from what we've played, but even juicier, what we've learned from the devs who we spoke to. So stay tuned to this channel to catch all of that in the coming days. You get the feeling it's going to be non-stop from now on until launch. But thanks for joining us today. If you like this video, don't thank us, thank our patrons who give their actual real-life money to make all of our work happen. And seriously, patrons, thank you, because without you, there would be a whole lot less Taliesin Evitel. If you didn't like it, downvote the shit out of it. Remember, my name is Khadgar. Oh, I can't, it's too soon. From me, Taliesin, and Evitel too. Until next time, cheerio.